Good morning, everyone, and welcome to what a press conference in 2020 looks like. I firstly want to recognize that we're all gathered together this morning on the territory of the Nanaimo First Nation, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be here. We are here today to announce a task force to address the impact of COVID-19 in our community. The Mayor's Task Force on Recovery and Resilience will work with community leaders to provide strategic recommendations to Council which will inform the forthcoming 5-year fiscal plan and align with the current adopted strategic plan. The task force will focus on citywide recovery strategies and work in collaboration with other organizations both during and after the pandemic. We will work in collaboration with the business community and other community organizations to identify immediate economic recovery strategies for residents, businesses, and community organizations. As well, identify and support community-driven ideas and solutions to assist in the recovery process, including the design and implementation of activities and programs. In an effort to build local resilience, the task force will collaborate with other public bodies, private institutions, and community organizations. Finally, the task force will take all of this and develop a plan, which will be presented to Council in the fall. In it, the plan will detail the coordination and implementation of recovery and relief efforts to support the community through the COVID-19 pandemic and its recovery process. These are proactive steps the City is taking to ensure the community is ready for rapid recovery, and I am grateful to Council for the enthusiasm that they bring to this project. I am also very pleased to announce this morning the following members from the community who are joining me and Councillor Brown, the two representatives from Council, on the task force. Many of you will know them. They are community leaders in every sense of the word. And in alphabetical order, James Byrne, the Regional Managing Partner, Vancouver Island, Myers Norris Penny; Donna Hayes, Chair of the Nanaimo Port Authority and leading businesswoman in our community; Signe Madden, known to all, the Executive Director of United Way. We have Deb Saucier, who's not able to be with us this morning, the President and Vice Chancellor of Vancouver Island University. And lastly, and certainly not least, however, though, Ian Simpson, the Chief Executive Officer, Petroglyph Development Group, Nanaimo First Nation, and the grandson of some very fine people who were friends and clients of mine. This is a remarkable team of community leaders. I think it's obvious why I chose them to sit on the task force. They bring incredible strength, knowledge, power, connections, and a love of community to this project. We are all going to need to pull together to build a stronger and more resilient community as we work through this incredibly challenging period which none of us foresaw. This means pulling the brightest and the best in concert to ensure a better future for our city, and I am confident that the task force members are certainly up to the challenge of working with everyone in our community, particularly our leaders, to create the strategies necessary and to guide us to better and brighter days. Yesterday, the Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, who is probably now the most famous and most loved British Columbian, presented 4 key principles for our new normal moving forward. Staying informed, being prepared, and following public health advice. Practicing good hygiene, the hand hygiene, avoidance of touching faces, respiratory etiquette, disinfecting frequently touches surfaces that we've all been practicing. Staying at home and away from others if feeling ill. Maintaining physical distancing outside the household, which you're seeing evidence of here this morning as we announce the task force. Making necessary contact safer with appropriate controls, i.e. plexiglass barriers, room design. Increasing environmental cleaning at home and at work. Considering the use of non-medical masks in situations where physical distancing cannot be maintained, for instance during transit or shopping, and reducing personal non-essential travel. In her words, very Churchillian, this is the end of our beginning of this pandemic. And while it is still unclear what is going to happen, we know there is room to move on to a new phase where some things can start opening again. As we start this new phase, we need to keep these principles in mind. Tomorrow, the provincial government is expected to provide a path moving forward, and a task force will use the recommendations to inform each step of our work. I want to relate a small story this morning, though, which was a real reminder to me of how many in our community are feeling. When I stopped to buy a paper this morning, the woman ahead of me turned and saw me in my suit and tie, and she looked at me inquiringly and she said, "You have work?" "Yes," I said, "I have work." And she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm your mayor." And she said, "Oh, you must be busy." I have never felt so guilty about having an occupation as I did this morning looking at this woman and recognizing in her eyes and in the look in her face what this task force has to keep central in its focus all the time, and that is all of those in the community who do not have the benefit of work, who do not have the benefit of wealth, who are looking to this task force to create the kinds of strategies that will not just build and rebuild our community, but make it resilient for whatever the future may throw at us. So I am incredibly grateful this morning to have this amazing team. I've also spoken to a number of others who I expect will want to participate and provide their knowledge and their input and bring their expertise, their passion, and their love of community to the work ahead of us as well. There is enthusiasm to get going in Nanaimo. There is enthusiasm to make this community recover quickly for all of us. So I want to thank all of you for listening this morning. I want to especially thank the team that's assembled here today who are prepared to take on this task. Thank them on behalf of the community. Express my appreciation to city staff who will be working with us, including our CAO, Jake Rudolph, who's here with us this morning. This is a strange and difficult and challenging time. It is a time like none of us have ever seen before. But we are going to get through this, and with this team working on your behalf, on behalf of this whole community, we are going to get through it, and we are going to come out the end a better place, a more resilient community, a community ready to face the future and really take this city to its destiny, which I believe is to be just exactly what we've always thought it could and should and would be, the best city in North America. Thank you for attending this morning, and thank you for listening.
We do have a question. Why is the Mayor's Task Force for Resiliency and Recovery created now?
The task force is being created now because now is the time to do it. We have seen how the crisis has played out, the impact it's had on our community. It is time to move forward, to start to move towards recovery, and to create the kind of community that is going to look different than the one we had 3 months ago, and will hopefully be in a position to resist any kind of impact like another pandemic in the future. And a community that I think is much more aware of its interconnectedness and how much we rely on each other in ways we never thought about and often took for granted.
Lisa Cordasco from Chile has asked just to repeat the announcement of the members of the task force.
Oh, yes. Very happy to do so. James Byrne, the Regional Managing Partner, Vancouver Island Myers Norris Penny. Donna Hayes, Board Chair, Nanaimo Port Authority. Signe Madden, Executive Director of United Way. Deb Saucier, President and Vice Chancellor of Vancouver Island University. Ian Simpson, Chief Executive Officer, Petroglyph Development Group, Nanaimo First Nation. Of course, Councillor Tyler Brown, and myself, Mayor Leonard Krog. But we will, as I said earlier, be relying and pulling in all of the talent of the leadership that this community has to offer, and many of whom have already stepped forward, having heard rumors. Nanaimo being a small town as it is, having heard the rumors, have stepped forward and offered their assistance because there is an enthusiasm to help this community recover.
Lisa Cordasco again from Chile. What planning documents exist in preparation for such an emergency?
I don't think I can say that we have planning documents that ever considered a pandemic. I think it's fair to say that both the federal, provincial, and all municipal governments were somewhat taken aback by this. Certainly the province on the healthcare side has responded quickly, but I think the rollout of government funding, both federally and provincially, and the recent measures taken by the city all indicate that none of us were prepared for this, perhaps the way we should be, but I suspect given this experience, and given it's been 100 years since the last worldwide pandemic, that we're not going to get caught flat-footed again.
Lisa Cordasco, Chile, has asked, what is the mandate?
The mandate is to develop a plan, ultimately, that will be delivered to Council in the fall. so it can detail and coordinate the implementation of recovery and relief efforts to support the community through the crisis, but also in our general recovery. We will be looking at a very different Nanaimo, I suspect, as will every community in the world as a result of the pandemic and its impact on people's attitudes and behaviors. This is, within the lifetime of most of us, an unprecedented historical event. This is the kind of thing you will be telling your grandchildren about if you have them.
Alex Ronsley from Nanaimo News Now. Can you break down what the task force, we've already answered that one. Mandate is regarding areas of focus first. Is it big business, small business, tourism, etc.?
We're going to focus on what the task force thinks is appropriate to focus on. For instance, we know that the tourism sector, the hospitality sector, has been particularly devastated by the results of the pandemic. There's no question about that. Some sectors of our local economy are doing reasonably well. Some businesses have adapted already. But we also have, coupled with that, it's not just around the economics of it, it is around the health of the community, it is around the vulnerable population, it's around social networks and clubs and organizations and all of those things that make our community. It is about the interconnectedness of everything. The mandate of the task force is reasonably broad, but we hope to come up eventually with specific recommendations that'll bring the community together both in an economically successful way, but also in a way that will create and build new connections between various parts of the community that may not have connected before. We're going to get to know one another a lot better, I hope, and so that if we ever face something like this again, we'll be that much better prepared. And we will hopefully be able to provide some leadership within the context of the province to show communities that if you step forward, you get really good people, like the people who are here this morning, you can recover much more quickly than if you sit back and quote unquote let nature take its course.
And Alex has a follow-up question. Is there a timeline for the task force?
The hope is the fall to have a strategic plan delivered to council. But the task force work might, I hate to say this, I don't want to scare them off this morning, but the task force work might continue after that. We will see how it goes. We are all of us in uncharted waters, to use that cliche. No one has seen this for 100 years.
Coming in from Facebook Live, what types of actionable items are you looking at first and foremost? Any specifics to come along with this announcement?
We're not looking for specifics this morning. That's the work of the task force. These talented people, supported by others in the community, are going to come up with the recommendations. I assembled them for their knowledge and their expertise, and they bring a broad range of views to this task force.
Is there any other questions?
I don't have any.
Thank you to staff and everyone this morning for participating in this, and those who could attend, thank you for coming out. My first press conference conducted in this manner. I suspect, given the circumstances, it may not be the last. Thank you very much.